Good afternoon. Oh, come on. Good afternoon. We're nearing the end of Smart City Expo, so I'm sure that you're all as exhausted as I am. I want to thank you all for coming to this session today, and even more importantly, to be part of the Smart City Expo 2017. As an advisory board member for the Expo, it has been amazing to watch the growth of this event, and I want to thank you personally for being a major part of that. Today, we are privileged to have a distinguished panel to talk about how startups are innovating cities. My name is Michael Lake. I am the president and CEO of a global nonprofit organization called Leading Cities. We have operations in 10 countries, and our mission is to improve the quality of life in cities through smart city ecosystems. And so this particular topic is near and dear to our heart. Next year, we're actually launching a new program called the Seller City that is a Accelerator Plus program to connect to today's startups with the customers, whether it be corporations or cities, that they need to be successful and to scale and internationalize. I want to pay particular thanks and gratitude for 4 years from now. That is the organization that is hosting this panel discussion today. 4 years from now is the startup business platform of the mobile world capital, Barcelona. It enables startups, investors, corporations, and public institutions to discover, create, and launch new ventures together. 4 years from now enters the Smart City Expo for the 3rd year in a row, and they have brought an entire village of smart tech innovators with them, all sharing a mission to support the development of our cities. The village is actually just outside. If you haven't visited it yet, we encourage you to do so. Some of the great new emerging technologies, emerging solutions are there for you to discover. To introduce this session, I just wanted to say that I think anybody who is in this room, certainly those of us on the stage, will agree that startups are really pushing the innovation bar. They're setting new opportunities for our cities. They are changing the quality of life in cities, and there is opportunities that have yet to be discovered. I want to just take a quick moment to introduce our panelist, the first speaker. I apologize that our introductions are going to be short, but there's many of us up here. We want to save some time at the end for questions and answers. And on that note, I do want to remind you, if you haven't already, please download the Smart City app. You will find in there the Ask and Vote application. Please submit your questions through that. And if you haven't submitted a question, please still log in and vote for the questions you most want to hear. I guarantee you we're not going to have time to address all of the questions, and I apologize in advance for that. But we will be looking to you, our audience, for the final part of this session to engage you in your questions. So please use that application. And now please join me in welcoming Fred Lacerda, the president of Curitiba Development Agency. Good luck.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Michael. I'm here from Curitiba, and I will try to tell you a little about our project in Curitiba, to tell you how we are working with the startups, how the municipality is trying to help the ecosystem of innovation of Curitiba to evolve not only the startups, but the city of Curitiba. I think it's better now. A little bit about Curitiba, just to situate you all. Curitiba is more or less the size of Barcelona. It has 1.8 million inhabitants, and the metropolitan region has 3.5 million inhabitants. Since the 70s, Curitiba has been known for its innovation in the urban planning. We have the BRTs that were exported all over the world, and from them we have been always rethinking the city as always rethinking the city for it to better serve its citizens. The project that we are implementing in the city, it's called Vale do Pinhão. It's a project that will help evolve the ecosystem of innovation in the city. It is designed by the mayor Rafael Greca, and it will implement a better integration for the actors of the city in the innovation system. The public sector, the academic sector, and the private sector. This project is based on 3 pillars: innovation in the city hall, internationalization, growth of the system, and we are implementing from the February in this year 22 actions learning oriented. So we are implementing it and learning from the results that we're having with them. One of that actions is Curitiba Experimental City, that we are trying to review the legislation to promote innovative urban solutions for it to quickly and easily be implemented in the city. Until the end of the year, in January probably, we are going to make a call for startups and technology companies for them to test their solutions in Curitiba. We have been doing that for a long time, like with electric buses and other solutions. The second pillar, international connection, we want to exchange experiences and knowledge with other innovation ecosystems in the world. We have been having web conference every week since the beginning of the year. And the second action that I would like to talk about, that it's directly connected to the startups, is a platform. It's a platform that we launched 2 months ago to develop the startups. Since it's launching, we have more than 120 startups that are being part of the program. It's an easy platform for us to map the startups of the city of Curitiba. We are also creating innovation community, providing infrastructure and capacity for the community to implement its ideas. We are creating in the districts of Curitiba maker spaces and creating in what's called the lighthouse of knowledge, and space integrated for the public schools, for the children that are part of the public schools, to get in contact with 3D technology, 3D printers, and so. Just for you to know, these are some photos of the lighthouse of learning. That they are libraries that now are connected with internet and 3D printing technology. We are also implementing local and public co-workings for the startups and the creatives of the city. This one is Curitiba, is the first public co-working of Curitiba, where the startups and the innovative companies can work with no costs for them. And this one is the second co-working that we are going to install next year that is exclusively for cultural and artistic movements. We are also trying to improve the neighborhood of the Vale do Pinhão. That is the urban platform of the city that we are going to test solutions and new technologies that can be used for improve the life in the city. This area was the previous industrial area of Curitiba that became increasingly degraded with the exodus of the industries for another areas of the city. But here we have a very good field for us to test to implement our project, because it is an area that has already several academic and innovation actors here, like universities, actors that promote innovation, like IBKP and ICTs, startup accelerators. We have already some co-workings and cultural movements that are working there, and others actors. The commitment of the mayor is very great with this project. He's been involved in every step and every planning of the way. A little bit of the first startups that are working with the municipality to change what we have in Curitiba, like this app called Saúde Já. It's an app that help us minimize the time of waiting in line for the citizens that need to schedule medical consultations. Laura Robot, it's a solution that are being implemented in the hospitals of the city to increase efficiency in detection of widespread infections in hospitals. HiLab is a startup that works with blood tests, and the last one is Reação Urbana, that means urban reaction. That's a social movement that we are working with to change the area that is the urban platform of the valley. So this is Curitiba. We are getting ready for the future. We are creating the future now. This is just the beginning. Thank you. Welcome to Curitiba. I also would like to invite you for next year. Curitiba has just been announced and abroad for Smart City Expo with ICTs. I hope to see you all to see what we are implementing in Curitiba. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Next, I want to welcome to the stage Jeremy Goldberg, the Deputy Technology Officer for the City of New York and for NYCX. Thank you.
Thank you. So you don't see the clock, but it says we get 8 minutes. There are 3 of us that work in government, and there's a podium. So we'll do our best to keep it to 8 minutes or below. So let's try. So the room is full. We have, without a doubt, the compliment to the organizers of this conference and the organization 4 years from now that drew in, I'm sure, many of you to this conversation. But if I ask you to think a little bit further, and how do you move this thing? Which one is it? This one? There we go. I want you to think about 100 years from now. The things that people will be talking about, the things that people will be looking to as the legacies of cities and the legacies of the companies that are building these incredible technologies with the best intentions in mind to make a positive impact for all of us and for our future. Now, I come at this work in New York City having had experiences working in San Jose, in the mayor's office, in the city of San Francisco, and now in New York City, to give you a sense of the type of opportunities and the risk tolerance that each of these different activities have. from a pro bono public-private partnership program in San Jose, which was really about data-driven performance improvements, to real city challenges and operational challenges, to taking a 16-week accelerator program in San Francisco and turning that into a model that expanded to 4 cities and has now recently announced a national and international expansion, to the work that we're doing today in New York City through NYCX. So if you take it back for just one moment, in the 1860s in New York City, someone thought it was a great idea to dig a hole in the earth, put some rail in it, drop a train into it, cover it with dirt, and today in New York City, we take it for granted. It's not perfect, but millions of people every year take the New York City subway. It's that bold thinking and pushing the envelope that's what I want startups and entrepreneurs and technologists to be thinking about. So my question to you is, if you imagine the future that looks something like this, something that's disruptive, something that can change the way that we get around and the way we move around our cities, there are great intentions here, but engaging earlier in the process with us, with the city, and creating that framework is what NYCX is about. It has to do with safety, it has to do with privacy, it has to do with the future advancements of automation and technology in places like New York City, and what that means for the future planning, for the future development, and for the economic development factors and considerations that go into planning for our future. And so about a month ago, Mayor de Blasio announced that our office would lead NYCX. And what we're doing is inviting entrepreneurs, technologists, teams from universities, researchers, individuals to come to New York City and use the city as a test bed for R&D, for development, for growth and opportunity in a real urban environment to test the assumptions, test your ideas, and work with us to develop what the future city looks like. You could sort of view this as a continuum of locations where we get to test this technology. Starting here, on your left, our industry lab. If you think about working inside a room, a stale environment, without the impacts or without the things that one would experience if testing in an urban space. Moving along Governor's Island, which is a bit of a greenfield opportunity for companies to come and to test their solutions in real conditions, and to the Navy Yard in Brooklyn, which is a bit more like a city street, a bit more like a city environment with infrastructure, with sewage management, safety, security, and many of the different things and factors that a lot of other organizations and places would hope to have access to in doing their testing. And then at the neighborhood level, where we really work with the community to understand what the real problem sets are and co-develop with communities in New York City to test the solutions. This is just recently closed, but we issued a moonshot challenge at Governor's Island. And this is the highest speed, lowest cost internet that we're looking for that would deploy at Governor's Island, that would help inform the city as it looks to expand broadband access for all New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. We issued our collab challenges, which goes into the neighborhood level based testing of our programming. These 2 are still open today, so I ask you again, when you think about the solutions that you're presenting to cities and to organizations, the city is asking you to come with your wildest ideas, the biggest ideas that you have. And let's prove those out together, and let's work with the community to understand if they're actually a fit and they're actually truly a part of what we think will make for a better quality of life for all New Yorkers. That's what I've been able to do in 6 minutes. I want to leave it there so that we have more conversation and opportunity to discuss as part of our panel. But once again, I ask all of you, everyone in this room, come to New York, come and test and work with us. We're open for business, and we're ready to work with you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well done.
Thank you for those extra 2 minutes back. I want to next welcome Emmanuel Leger, the Managing Director of Datacity. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So thanks, Jeremy, for the invitation to New York. Really pleased to know that we can start to be working together. And same for Curitiba as well. You know, I've noted the date of the exhibition. So I'm here to talk about how we are innovating cities with the startups. And I wish to introduce you about what Datacity, which is a program which has been launched by Numa in 2015, is doing to design the cities of today and of tomorrow, and to bring to the table the most innovative ideas that we can develop together. As you all know, this is something I won't spend too long on, but cities are facing increasing challenges that basically are the challenges that we all faces, not only cities, but they focus these challenges because they challenge the way we live, the way we use technology, and the way we consume energy. In France, which is the country where Numa is based, more than 75% of the people are living in cities. It's more or less the same in Europe, and it's more than 50% of the world planet. And we use in cities 75% of the energy produced, and more than 50% of the greenhouse gas that are being polluting our life. And this puts a huge challenge not only on cities, but as well on the citizens, on us who are using the cities every way. And this basically brings the question, how can we change our behavior? How can we change the way we use cities, the way we produce energy, the way we consume energy? And this is not only an issue for governments, this is an issue for everyone and for the entire ecosystem. Our strong belief at Numa and with Datacity is that we can accelerate this movement through innovation. Smart cities doesn't mean anything when it doesn't bring smart collaboration between all the players. And we strongly believe that cities are part of the answer, corporate are part of the answer, and startups are at the essence, in their core essence, in their mission, have the value to bring something new to the cities. Let me share you a few thoughts that I have. When I was passing through the stands of this exhibition, I was amazed by the fact that corporates are offering solutions and cities, and they're coming with solutions when cities have issues. And I think we should discuss that for a minute. At the core of the essence of the methodology of Datacity, we try first to define the issues on which we want to work. We don't bring solutions, we try to define the issues together. And I think that the startups are there because they have decided to tackle an issue that hasn't been solved and that basically nobody has thought of, like the metro in New York a few hundred years ago. So how do we do that? Basically, we do that because we think that startups bring technology, obviously, but not only technology, they are dareish. And finally, what they bring to the table is methodologies, design thinking and in startup and time boxing manners. Because they don't have much capital, they don't have much time. They need to go fast. In Datacity, what we do is that we define the challenge between corporates and cities. We try to align the interest. Then we select the startup through our startup acceleration programs that we have in several areas in the world, but mainly Europe, the US, and Asia. And then we experiment. We try to test prototypes during 3 months to see if there is a viable business model and sustainable business model that we can replicate in different parts of the world. And then, thanks to our acceleration program, what we have decided to do is that, if need be, we could accelerate and scale some of the innovations. Together, we have so far basically being able to bring to the table about 12 corporate partners in Paris. It's the third edition of this program in Paris. And now we have launched it in Casablanca, and we are preparing for the next rollout. We're not only bringing corporate partners, we're bringing universities, we're even bringing citizens' voice by some questionnaires and deep analysis of the needs of the citizens. and as well as technical partners who bring technology to the table, data scientists, mappers who are able to map the city planning issues, and all types of other sponsors and supports. Types of solutions that we have been developing so far. We've been developing solutions in the energy sector. We've been developing solutions in the waste sector. I will come up to some of the examples later, but with different partners, each time partnering between one corporate and one startup, we have been able to select specific challenge and make proof of concept prototypes to develop some specific solutions. So far, out of this program, we have very successful results. All the startups are still alive. Some have managed to raise significant money, and more than 50% of the partnerships that we have set up between startups and corporate partners are still alive and developing well. So what's next for us? For us, we are now trying to develop in other areas of the world. We are launching, and we will announce today the launch of Datacity in Barcelona, and this is one of the reasons for my coming, and as well in Bangalore, in Singapore. Any corporate partners, any startups who wants to develop smart city initiatives in this area, please, I would be more than happy to answer your questions at the end of this session with my colleagues who are sitting here in the first row. So Datacity is becoming true in Barcelona. What is basically the value that we propose? We propose basically a commitment to deliver one business model in a 3-month period, and to have a new framework to innovate together between the cities, the startups, and the corporate partners. And to finish, let me give you 2 examples. This is concrete examples we have been developing with Suez, a French utility company, and with Craft AI. They had this issue that basically the bins in Paris, they were there on the pavements, preventing the pedestrian to benefit from their city fully, and the city of Paris wanted to decrease that. And Suez had another issue. They were not able to collect as much waste as they want. So we've been developing a platform who sends basically messages to the caretakers who can bring the waste to the streets 10 to 20 minutes before the truck is coming. Thanks to Craft AI, who is an intelligent artificial agency, we've been managing to create a model through data analysis who was enabling us to basically decrease the time of the bins on the street by 46% and to increase by 5 to 10% the productivity of the collect of the waste. So this has been developed in territories which is south of Paris, and now it's being expanded with a tender. And Suez and this startup are partnering together to answer the tender of the city of Paris. And this is typically a solution that we can be replicated, because our ambition, and I will finish by that, our ambition is to create solutions that can be replicated in many areas of the world, and to create this platform to do the city another way by putting together 3 types of players who will benefit from these solutions: cities, corporates, and startups. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Manuel, thank you. And congratulations. Another round of applause for launching here in Barcelona. Very exciting. Please join me in welcoming Shana Krakowski, the director of the platform at Tel Aviv Global.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's really great to be here on this panel. I wanted to talk a little bit about something I think is missing in this exhibition, which has been absolutely wonderful. And I've met amazing startups and cities, and it's been really exciting. But I think when we talk about smart cities, we need to make sure we're also talking about the social people side of smart cities, not just infrastructure and water and energy, but the people themselves and the social gaps. A smart city is a city that works for everyone in their city, and this is something I think we're seeing all around the world, these gaps within cities, social, socioeconomic gaps that exist. And who is the city being smart for? So that's a bit what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about what I'm doing in Tel Aviv with our new program called the Platform. But I wanted to tell you a bit about Tel Aviv first. Tel Aviv is known as being a center for innovation. If I talk about Tel Aviv and I ask people what they think about, they do think about startups. But you should realize something, that despite the many, many startups that we create, we're a tiny little city. If you look at us compared to other cities around the world or other innovation centers, we're only about 50 square kilometers. So we're quite small. And yet, we're creating a lot of startups. We have about 440,000 people in our city, many of them young. 30% of our city are young people. And I think the most important statistic is that you have one startup for every 250 people in the city, residents for the people. That's the best per capita percentage in the world. We're very proud of that statistic. So we have an incredibly, incredibly high concentration of startups. Basically, 1 out of every 10 employees in the city is working in the high-tech sector. And we've been growing. We've been seeing tremendous growth, 71% since 2012, in terms of the number of startups in the city. And so we like to quote Mike Butcher from TechCrunch that says, if you threw a stone in Tel Aviv, you would probably hit a high-tech entrepreneur. And this is true. You walk down the street, one of our main boulevards in Rothschild, and really every single person is a startup person, and every single building is housing startups. And we do a lot to promote and support this. It's something that's very important to us. We're proud of it, and we do what we can. Tel Aviv is a very expensive city, so we give municipal tax breaks to startups. We host citywide public co-working spaces. We also have beta sites. I mean, I can go on and on, but you've heard this from the other cities, and I actually don't want to toot our horn. I want to tell you about some of the challenges. This is the side of Tel Aviv maybe you haven't heard about. We, like every city in the world, have some very serious urban and social challenges. The difference, I think, in Tel Aviv is that it's very concentrated. Like I said, we're a really small city, so it's really close to one another. So you have one area of the city where you have all these amazing, innovative startups, and then you have another area of the city that's literally, and I mean this, 500 meters away, where you have overcrowding, where you have unemployment, where you have homeless people in the streets. I didn't put it on the slide because we don't love to talk about it, but prostitution, drug use, drug dealing. One of the big things that has changed this side of the city is waves of migration. Now, it's nothing compared to cities in Europe like Berlin, for instance, but it's very, very concentrated, and we're a small country and we're a small city. And so just to give you a feeling for that, in one neighborhood that's supposed to house about 6,000 people, it currently houses about 30,000. So if you think about what that does to infrastructure and social tensions, it's really incredible. So we, as the city of the Tel Aviv, said, okay, 1 second. We have these problems, we have these urban challenges that we don't seem to be fixing. And at the same time, everyone comes to us for solutions, for innovative ideas. We need to be solving our own problems. One of the things that I often say is I've seen a lot of Tel Aviv startups looking to emerging markets and looking to the developing world, often with a social intention to do good all around the world and to create solutions in agriculture, in health. But I often say to them, stay in your own city, fix your own problems. We need you. We need you to be solving the urban challenges in your own city. So the vision of the platform is to harness this ecosystem that we've already built to disrupt the way we're solving our problems. We're going to say, help us solve the problem in your own city. And the other really important message and vision that we have is that you can't bring people from the outside, and this is something maybe you as startups or as cities experience. There's a disconnect between the people solving the problem and the people feeling the pain. And so if you're not empowering the people feeling the pain to be part of that conversation, you're not doing enough. So we want to empower the local people to be the innovators, to come up with the solutions together with people that have the background in technology, because they're the ones that feel the pain and they're the ones that are going to know the right solutions. We believe, why do we believe that startups need to be innovating in cities? Like I said, the real solutions are created bottom up. And we also know that there's bureaucracy and there's sometimes a fixed mentality in municipalities. They do things the way they know how to do things, and we continue doing things. We admit this. We admit that this is, when we're a big institution, this is a problem. The startups force the city to innovate. They come up with ideas, and you know what? It becomes a competition. I have to be honest with you. When we see great startups, we're like, hey, they're so cool. We want to be like that. It's completely true. We come here, we get inspiration, and we say, we want to be like that as a city. We want to be better. And then they need us. We have the information, we have the resources, and we have the connections for people to implement their ideas, either by buying their technology and implementing it in the city, or by just giving people access to beta sites in the city. So our model, and I won't say it's actually that innovative, although I wrote it there, is to connect the dots between the people with the great ideas, the local community, the municipality, and very important, and why I'm here, is the global connections, to make sure that we're not in our own little bubble solving a solution that's been solved 50,000 times over in every other city. That's super, super important. I just want to give, because I see my time is running out, I just want to give an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about kind of changing from cities solving problems to startups starting problems. I recently, when we first launched, held a community meeting where we brought in local people who, by the way, do not trust the municipality and are not big fans, to talk about what they want out of the center. And I got a yelling session. I got a screaming session of a bunch of very angry residents about everything that's wrong with the neighborhood and that the city must fix immediately. And I ended that conversation by turning it back on them, and I said, why don't you fix it? Stop waiting for us to fix it. You solve it. I promise you to back you up. I promise you to bring it to the highest officials in the city when you have the solution. But I will bring you training, and I will bring you consulting and mentors and connect you to the technology experts in the city, but you need to be the ones and not wait for us to come up with the solutions. We'll help you do it. So that's what we're trying to do. I didn't have time to talk about my my case study, but I'm happy to talk to anyone else. And I will put our pitch out there. We're looking to create the conversation globally. So startups that have solutions from around the world, we want you to be talking to our entrepreneurs, not only to our city, but to our city as well. And so I'm happy to speak to anyone that would like to discuss this with me, especially with a social urban focus.
Well done. Right on time, right on time. I just want to, before I introduce our last panelist, I do want to remind all of you, if you haven't already, to please start submitting your questions. We'll be starting the Q&A session right after Dennis Bourneau, the Director of Corporate Relations, is joining us from, Digital Attraction.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much, Basi. Whoop. Hello, everybody. I'm representing the little tub of this panel. I'm from Belgium, from the south part of Belgium, for the province of Hainaut, which is quite same number of people at Tel Aviv, but on a broader dimension. And we have very smart cities, or cities that want to be smart. So the public VCs decide not to go everybody in that direction and create some tools to be able to manage the new digital economy and to create jobs in digital and to be attractive for the project and to be known as a digital region. So digital attraction is creation of 3 public VC. It's a startup accelerator, smaller than the one from Emmanuel. We just started 1 year ago, less than 1 year. And we are there to recruit, to accelerate by transforming the startup to be mature enough to go to a VC to be funded and to grow. So we start, and currently we have approximately 20 startups that were accelerated. Some are nearly finished the acceleration, but some just started last week and come this week on Barcelona to see how is the smart city market and compare that to what they are trying to do to see if they are a good level and maybe change something. It was very interesting for them to come. So sharing economy or collaborative is sometimes a solution, sometimes a problem. You all knows Uber, BlaBlaCar, Airbnb, Coyote, and so on. And most of the time, there is always friction between organizations, cities, and so on, and government about those startups that comes from the bottom to the user community, have a solution and they spread it. And if it's good, it's working. But there is concern about governance, about law, about taxes issue, and so on. But if it's good, it's working. So you have to live with it, and you have to put measure to be sure to control, to do it in a better way, and so on. So the idea was for us to push the startup to come with solution for the cities, but we don't want to manage this after all old problem. So we try to create something to be not in a fighting mode, but in a collaborative mode, and that's the Mover program we launched at Digital Attraction. It's a collaboration program between corporate or cities in order to bring innovation to those cities or corporation. Innovation within a corporation or a city is always existing. You are always moving to the next level of your product and so on. But sometimes you have to break the rules and go to innovative, disruptive system solution. So some of the corporates try to go and see in the jungle of the startup how they can collaborate. It's not really working every time. Sometimes the timing between the expectation of a startup or the expectation of a city or a corporate do that everybody is losing. The startup is not growing and can disappear, and the corporate or the city say, okay, I lost my time, it's not working. And so we decide to help such a case by bringing expertise in acceleration, coaching, training, and opening the doors, networking, and so on, in order to have success. We hope to have success. An example for me is C-Park. C-Park is a startup quite new. It has been founded 4 months ago, and in quite relative small time, they did add a lot of users. It's a platform to get rid of the fine. What they do, they offer you an application to see where are the parking zones, okay, but where are the controls? At what time is it someone that comes regularly, and so on. So you see, for a city, it could be something difficult to manage because incomes are not coming because of the fine and so on. And with the help of our program, what we are trying to do is to move from that to a collaboration with a city and after with other city. And why to do that? To bring new capabilities on the application, not only for the final user, but also for the city. And our goal is to make it possible because we work with the city in collaboration with the startup. And it's really a way of defining what the city can have as expectation for such a solution, what it can receive, what it can give, what is the new data that the startup can have access to, which are maybe not public one, and to share in order to have a success for the startup and go in a legal way in Belgium, other places, but also maybe in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I want to, just one final reminder, I am getting the questions you're submitting. Please, if you haven't submitted one, do so now. If you haven't and don't have a particular question, still log on and vote for the questions that are. We're not going to get to be able to address all of these, so your votes are still important. I want to start off with the moderator's privilege here with my own question. There is a clear opportunity in the innovation that startups bring to the ecosystem of smart cities. But there is also this natural tension that exists. This tension between startups who innovate on a faster pace, but also require sales. I mean, they're a business in the end. And you have government on the other side that operates at a much slower pace, a much more careful, thought out pace, bureaucratic pace. So my question to each of you, in just a couple words or seconds, what do you think of this tension? How can it be addressed, or how can it be overcome? We'll start at the end. You just spoke. Thank you.
Okay. What we're trying to do in Curitiba is review the legal system, because not only the government has its bureaucracy, but the legal system in Brazil is very old. We have the law that regulates the contracts between the government and the companies is like 25 years old. So that's one step that we can do in the government side to help release this tension.
Right.
For starters, I think, as you can see, there's a collection of different ideas and opportunities here in many cities. And so the best thing you can do is borrow ideas and remix them a little bit and make them your own. And so when I look to President as far as for an opportunity to open up the contracting and procurement process, I'm looking for examples so that when someone from legal or for someone from budget says, you can't do that, and I ask why, and they don't have an answer, and I can point to something that has been done before in the city or in another peer city, that opens the opportunity to change things. What we've done with NYCX is, this is not a voluntary effort here from the startups or companies that respond. What we're looking for are your ideas, and through a competitive process, you're immediately entered in to the procurement process by applying. You'll receive an award, 3 teams for each of those challenges that I outlined of $25,000. The follow-on and the potential is a contract with that city agency or public agency to actually deploy that solution. That's one example of a way that challenge-based programming, which is happening across the US and in many parts of the world, that can really, I think, reap some benefits and demonstrate to companies that there's an opportunity within shorter sales cycles to engage with government.
Yeah, I think I agree with what has been just said. I think I see this risk and this tension as an opportunity, basically, because as you've seen in the panel, everyone from the city government, at least, they want to collaborate with startups. So for me, the core of the issue then is to find the proper way to engage. And so there are different answers. There is one in Belgium. There is one that we're developing now in Datacity. There is one in New York with New York cities. I think all these models are pretty efficient and have to prove their efficiency still. That's the first answer. And the second one is, I think that corporate partners have a role to play. By their size, they're slow as well in a way. And they are powerful to engage on the long run with cities. And partnering, I'm coming back to that again, but partnering between a startup and a corporate partner might be part of the answer to deal with a problem at larger scale and to deal with these issues of the tender process.
So I think that there are 2 sides to this coin. One is the city side, and I will admit that we need to do some soul searching and looking through our departments and see where are the bottlenecks, and trying to see if there's ways to, because there always are those specific departments, those specific places where can we change this? Can we make this faster? Can we respond more quickly? But on the other side, I think the startup community also has to set expectations and understand that when you're dealing with government, you're dealing with public money, and you're dealing with a process that needs to be fair, and that takes time. And you have to kind of see it from that angle. We're dealing with public money. We need to look at this. We need to make sure everyone's had an opportunity, that it's been fair. We're not the private sector. We can't just say we love this startup, we want to use them. So you have to understand that in the long run, that's good for everyone, and set your expectations when working with the city, and know what you're going into. And I agree that on the city side, we need to find the ways to find where are their bottlenecks, if it is looking at other models models from other cities. Where can we make this more efficient? Where can we cut out stages? Because I think the problem is that there are often too many stages. It needs to pass through too many people's hands. And that's something that I think every city should be working on.
What I think it's about the vision the city has to have and has to share it with the startup in order to know what they are looking for on a long term, and not only on election time, I would say, because every politics has its vision, every politics has its comprehension of what is a smart city, what is a startup, what they can do with that, and on the long term, it's difficult. And to have better education of the politics and also the administration of the cities to see how they can share what they have. They are on a huge collection of data, sit on it, and they don't use it. But the startup don't know that they exist, and maybe we can do a lot with those data. In the purpose of what is the vision of the city. The city can be oriented to something more cultural, something more industrial, and the startup will not work the same, will not be the same, and it will not work the same way with both.
Great. Just one other thing, we do have a microphone off to the right here. Angel, do you mind raising the lights so people can safely get to that if they have a question? And while we're doing that, please also just join me in thanking Angel and his team for all the work that they do to keep all of this going and all the audio-visual equipment that is required and skill that is needed. Please thank them for me. So we have several questions here. I'm going to start with an anonymous one. It's a three-part question. How do programs like Data City or NYCX measure success? Do you agree that different KPIs, there should be different KPIs with each partner city? And if profit is a KPI, is it reinvested?
I can start with this one. Yeah, I think that this is key for us to measure success. Obviously, I tried to put some figures on the slides. For us, the first way to measure success is the viability of the innovation. I mean, doing a prototype to do a prototype, as you know, it's pretty useless. I mean, and so what we're trying to see first is that if the innovation is lasting, so we do basically measure that with the money that is raised by the startups and the partners that we have in mind. So there is this profit element, and this profit element for us as Datacity, we see ourselves as a matchmaker. So it's not really for ourselves; it's really for the players we've been working with. I mean, it's fine to do profit if, as my colleague was saying, you know, this profit is for the sake of the city, for an innovation which brings good to the citizens. Then it comes to measuring the goods for the citizen. I think you would have an interesting view on that, but that's more difficult. There are several ways of doing it. We know we are partnering with the C40 Climate Leadership Group that are developing methodologies to measures on carbon emission. Big corporates are giving some open data software sometimes to measure that, carbon emissions. And but it's more difficult, honestly, to define that. In the example that I was giving, you know, it's clearly an annoyance to have the rubbish bin on the street, but how do you measure the impact instead of, you know, is it feasible to measure the impact? It's not always easy. And to answer your last point, yes, I think we should develop this methodology globally for all cities. If not, there is no referential and it doesn't mean anything. So these KPIs must be shared, and I'm more than happy to be part of a discussion on how to define KPIs globally, but I think it's one of the challenges we all faces, yeah.
Just to add, something that Shauna mentioned during her remarks, which I agree with entirely, is while I do care about the technology, the approach that we take in the problem identification and the work that we do, and ultimately the selections that we make for the companies, it's who's really taking the people first approach here. And so when we think about measurement, in the case of the two challenges that we have open in Brownsville, in East New York, the lowest income neighborhood in New York City and across the 5 boroughs, we're measuring not only the participation of the neighborhood in the process, because they're a part of identifying the challenge that you will ultimately respond to, but are we actually measuring quality of life improvements? Public safety, are businesses open later? Are more people employed? We know that it takes time. And so the long view on this, because there's some short-term things that we can measure, but the long view on how a program like what we've developed can really transform and improve quality of life for New Yorkers, rather than a great tech solution that we can buy off the shelf.
Thank you. Our next question is also anonymous. Has the startup culture in Tel Aviv fostered more dynamic policymaking? And how has governance changed in order to empower entrepreneurship?
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. Has the startup culture in Tel Aviv fostered more dynamic policymaking? And then the second part is, how has governance changed in order to empower entrepreneurship?
It's a great question. Yes, definitely. I think the startup culture has changed, and it's actually related to what I was saying. I think that everyone wants to be part of the scene and the innovative ecosystem, including government. So when we are constantly seeing the innovation happening in the city, it forces us to try and innovate. So you'll see, if you go by the Tel Aviv booth and see kind of what we've been doing in terms of smart cities in the city, I would say it has definitely been influenced by what we're seeing around us. And I would say we're becoming competitors to the startups as a city. We're trying to develop our own technology in-house because we're competing with them. And I think that's changing our policies. I'll give you just a quick example. Our mayor has right next to his office this huge screen where he sees in real time how long someone's waiting at a desk downstairs to get service, and various different places all around the city. So we are kind of changing, we want to be efficient the way startups want to be efficient. So it's definitely changed our policies.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Urban Logic. What is each participating city doing to innovate procurement process and make universal data standards to encourage startups to work with the city?
So I saw the gentleman from Urban Logic, and he walked out of the room. So should we answer this question? I don't know. No, really. So I think we spoke about this just at the outset in terms of ways that we can accelerate the timeline. So when you respond to a challenge that we issue, that whether it's a 4-month period of which you engage on a voluntary basis and you co-develop with the agency, and at the end of that there's a potential for a contract. That's one way that San Francisco, for example, has been innovating on procurement. There are many other ways that we can do this, and often that means working with accelerators. Grand Central Tech in New York City is one of those, which hosts some really impressive events that serve as a bridge between the startup community and many of the public agencies that we work with. So there are many different models for this, but that's just sort of restating something I mentioned a little bit earlier.
Could you just repeat the question, please?
Repeat. What is each participating city doing to innovate procurement process and make universal data standards to encourage startups to work with the city?
Okay. In Curitiba, we are, as we said before, we are encouraging the startups to help the city through several programs, like the call we are going to make in December or January, that they will come to us to present urban solutions for the city. We are also helping them through spaces that we are making available for them to establish in the urban platform that we are creating as the laboratory for the Vale do Pinhão in Curitiba, to help them to present that kind of solutions.
Quickly get in on this. So I would say very briefly a few things. First of all, open data. It's key to to this whole story. So we have our open data online. Anyone can around the world go see, and we're constantly adding new silos to the data that we put out there. Whatever we can legally put out, we are putting out to the world. So anyone can use that information. That's number one and super important. Another is what we call startup committees. We have committees based on topic in the city that meet once a month with startups that can pitch their ideas or ask for specific data that they're not seeing online, and talk about what the procurement process could be, and much more easily do pilots in the city, because before procurement you need to do a pilot, and that's easier for us to run. Another thing is hackathons and competitions that we host on different topics, where we then give you the data and the challenge, and are able to engage with the startup community. And lastly, it's the spaces, the hubs, and the accelerators that the city runs.
So as our final question and a tribute to our host, I'm going to ask each of you in 10 seconds or less, we have 59 seconds left to this session, where do you see smart cities 4 years from now?
I see smart cities as more human cities. We have to take the citizens as the objective of the new smart cities.
I think we'll all be here by either an augmented reality or VR experience. At least half of this room, maybe.
Okay.
I see smart city as a way where collaboration is key, and that barriers between worlds that don't talk often to each others, like corporates, cities, and startups, are not questions anymore.
I see people running the city and not governments, meaning the solutions coming from the bottom up.
I see collaboration between the citizen, the startup, and the cities to issue solution on the problems they have.
So I think it's clear that collaboration, citizen engagement, political leadership is key to the future of smart cities. I mean, ultimately the challenge we have is, can we and how do we accelerate cities at the rate of innovation? I want to thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank especially our panelists for a great job this afternoon. Thank you all very much, and thank you.